Good afternoon. My name is Lene Palmisano, and I'm the Chair of Committee of the Whole. I'm going to call to order our regular committee meeting for Tuesday, March 21st. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll and verify the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Wansley.
Present.
Rainville.
Present.
Vitaw is absent. Ellison is absent. Osman.
Present.
Goodman.
Present.
President Jenkins.
Present.
Chugtai is absent. Koski.
Present.
Johnson is absent. Vice Chair Chavez.
Present.
Chair Palmisano.
Present.
We have 9 members present.
Thank you. I'd like to note that Councilmember Johnson is absent today for a medical procedure. Let the record reflect, however, that we do have a quorum. We have 4 items on our agenda in addition to our committee reports today. Our first item is our regular report on contract awards or amendments that have been approved over the last month by our ad hoc work group established for ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act-related expenditures. Staff does not have a presentation for this item today, but is on hand if anyone has any questions. Are there any questions for staff? And I'm going to ask my colleague to please help me with speaker management till I get it up on my own. I'm not seeing any questions. Are you in? Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Council Vice President. So I got a chance to look through the RCA on this and get to see, how some of the ARPA dollars were being used to advance some of our key priorities for equitable recovery from the pandemic. I'm including a focus on public health and opioid interdictions, as well as rental assistance, and a number of other concerns that are still, kind of top of mind for working class residents. But I did have a question for staff. I'm glad to see we have our folks here. There is a quote from the contract in front of us today that these dollars would allow us to provide and maintain hygiene stations, such as porta potties, hand washing, and syringe litter at or near encampments. We currently have 20 porta potties and hand washing stations placed and 25 syringe boxes. That numbers at least at 5 people. So I just had a question based off of, the context of that the contract that's stated. Is this affirming a standardized policy of providing and maintaining hygiene stations at all encampments of more than 5 people? Is there anyone who can speak to that question?
So I usually call on Director Dye. She's our CFO. She's not really equipped to answer this kind of a question, but I'm not seeing anybody immediately in the audience who would be part of answering that question. Director Dye, how do you want to handle this inquiry?
Councilmember Palmisano, committee members, I do not have programmatic information with me. I'm certainly willing to follow up with you, Councilmember Wansley, if you'd like more detail about the porta potties.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if there's also a way, I'm surprised we don't have staff here I'm assuming that would be our homeless response team, who likely, at least from ARPA, would be relegated to provide that. So that would be good. And also to add some context of why I'm asking that question. We had an encampment that bordered my ward where residents expressed for several weeks the need to have porta potties and hygiene stations, and specifically advocated around the public health impacts around unmanaged human feces. So that happened for several weeks, and we were not told about any policy at that time, and there had been deferred responsibility from the city in providing that until pressure kind of exploded, and finally they were provided in coordination with MnDOT, since the encampment and stuff was on that property. So it would be good to even in this moment clarify who makes those decisions. If you can add that to the list, I'll follow up. As again, those people should be here to be able to respond to these questions directly. And I think those are kind of the 2 bases. If this is a standardized policy based off of what's in our contract, and who authorizes and makes those decisions, if not.
Councilmember Palmisano, committee members, Councilmember Wansley, I will definitely follow up with you. Like I said earlier, the program decisions are done by the department head and the program staff. So I will definitely follow up with an email to the entire committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I don't think, let me just double check. I'll direct the clerk to please file that report. Item 2 is a quarterly update on our legislative directives, and I'll invite City Coordinator Heather Johnston to give the presentation on this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. This is our first quarterly report on legislative directives. Essentially, I won't read them all to you. We have 6 outstanding legislative directions that what we've been doing is, so I thought that for the first report, what I would like to do is just give you a sense of what we've been working on and how we're planning on going about this process, because you all have the directives in front of you, and we do have staff here to respond to additional questions that you may have. What we have tried to do is really, from an accountability standpoint, try and track all of these directives, because I think when we first changed government structure, it was difficult to know when we had particular items that were, and who was assigned to them. And I think even through this process, we found that some of these directives we thought one department was working on and another was. And so we have a relatively detailed process in place now so that we have a better understanding of who is the lead department, what other departments are responsible, and it's accessible to all of our departments so that they're able to go in and look at the legislative directives and say, you know, I have some thoughts on this one, and make sure that they reach out to the staff person who's responsible for those legislative directives. I would say sort of generally of all of the legislative directives that are outstanding that are listed in the report in front of you are on track to come back to the council within the deadlines. We don't have any specific delays that are reported in here, and we would also like to make sure that you're aware of those delays before they happen and before you get a quarterly report as well. So with that, I would just stand for any questions. If there's questions on the specific legislative directive, maybe for the public's sake, I can just mention the topics. The first one is off-duty police contracts. The second is labor standards co-enforcement. The third is the neighborhood organizing fund. The fourth is police department buyback contracts. The fifth is homeless encampments, and then the sixth is the community safety strategies pilot project. And so all of those are well underway. Meetings have started, and staff are doing work in order to bring them back to the council. So with that, I stand for any questions you may have. This, again, is our first report. So if you have feedback on the information that's provided, if there's additional information you would like, please let us know that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume as we get further in on these, we'll have a tracking document of sorts that we'll be able to update. Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Yeah, actually, kind of almost speaking to that, I'm curious. I don't have a question about a specific legislative directive. I'm wondering, how have you been thinking about how we should be managing these going forward? And in particular, I've kind of from the beginning of the new government structure, we've had a lot of conversations about how we get our legislative work done. We've kind of organically arrived at these legislative directives. They're getting a little bit more mature, but I think we still need to do some structured thinking around that. And I'm curious if you have, done any work in that regard.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Payne, we have been having a lot of conversations with department heads with respect to the legislative directive process. Obviously, we're following the resolution that was passed by the council, and we've tried to start doing training with staff about how we're tracking it, what kind of information we should be providing, what that looks like, how do we share information about the complexity of the different requests and the timing of the different requests. And so we've had those conversations as a part of the training that we're doing with with city staff. We've had several training sessions. The city clerk and I have done those together for the most part, and have also done individual presentations to department leadership. What we have told them is, to your point, is that this is a process that we're all learning, right? The government structure is a new thing, and what we want to do is we want to figure out how we can best make sure that we're being responsive and managing all of the other things on everybody's workload. One of the questions that came up, for example, is we have a couple departments where we're doing a lot of intense work on ordinance development. So how do we bring that into the conversation? For example, it's not specifically a legislative directive, but it certainly is a directive as part of the body. And so that's one of the things that we've been talking about with our staff about, okay, how do we acknowledge that work is also in addition to some of the other day-to-day activities as well. And so that was a very long answer to your question, but the answer to your short answer to your question is yes, we absolutely have been thinking about that and talking about that, and really see this as an evolving process to ensure that we're getting you all the information that you need as the legislative body, in addition to managing the other demands on staff workloads.
Thank you. Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Council Vice President. COO Johnson, I noticed on the presentation that the sidewalk plowing legislative directive wasn't listed. Was this list that you submitted representative of all of the legislative directives or just some? I did want to point that out.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Wansley, if it will be on the next one. I apologize for that oversight. We do have, we will check and see what the status of that is, and we can update this, and we'll send an updated report to the entire council. That's one of the purposes of doing this as well, to make sure we aren't missing anything. So we get to a deadline, and you're all like, where is this? And we're like, where's what? So, so appreciate you bringing that one up, and I will make sure we get that added to the list right away. Thank you.
And just another one that's still outstanding. I know we've been trying to work with the clerk's office around this too, in terms of, or have been, we just passed a resolution, at least on the council side, about supporting the work of refining our legislative processes and council rules. So, passed that several weeks ago with Council Vice President being a Palmisano. Knowing that that is going to be happening on the legislative side, we did authorize, as you named, that resolution back in December that Council Vice President brought forward that kind of codifies how our legislative directive processes will be, moving forward. I just wanted to get clarity of when our legislative staff completes that work, would that then replace what the resolution that we passed in December? Because that is part of reflecting kind of like what you're naming, our legislative process in terms of legislative directives. That's kind of like the pre-legislative process. And then from my understanding, or at least reports from, the city auditor, we would then look at how do we shape the process from a notice of introduction, the ordinance processes, finally getting a formalized kind of comprehensive manual of sorts that details that out for council. So just want to know, is that going to be replacing the legislative directive resolution that we passed?
Madam Vice President, I'll maybe step in here and say to the first issue about missing the directive that dealt with plowing, municipal plowing of sidewalks. The original information that was provided to the administration was provided by my office as we pulled from LIM. So any error, I'll take responsibility for that in terms of that being missed. And as the interim chief operations officer said, this is an opportunity for us to learn what we've missed and identify those. However, legislative directives are from this body directed to the administration. So you'll recall that the motion adopted by this body, not a legislative directive that was directed to the clerk and auditor, will never be on these reports. This is strictly following up and tracking the status of those matters that are directed by this body to the administration through the mayor. So the process of tracking your directives or guidance to the clerk and the auditor would not be reflected in these reports that the administration is bringing back, but would, as we said at the time, be reported through the government structure subcommittee under the committee of the whole. And we were directed to report on a regular basis, which was included in that motion.
Thank you, Clerk Carl. That offers some clarity, because I know there was a part, I think it's section 3 of that legislative motion that you highlighted that did somewhat talk about, again, reevaluating existing legislative protocol. So I wasn't sure if that was going to be factored into what we passed in December as that resolution. So thank you for offering that clarity. But yeah, those were the questions that I had. Thank you also, Clerk Carl, for identifying where the gap was around that other legislative directive around sidewalk plowing. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to give some assurance, I do see what we passed late last year, last December, I guess, was really just kind of a start and a way to figure out here's the informal process and here's a more formal legislative directive process. But I do see that work continuing to evolve. And the biggest next step forward is the directive that you and I put together, Councilmember Wansley, just recently, and that kind of is another evolution of this process. So any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'll direct the clerk to file that report. Item number 3 is the annual assessment report, and I'll invite up our tax assessor, Rebecca Malmquist, to give this presentation. Welcome.
You put tax assessor in front of assessor, and I get a little nervous.
Sorry, I just meant assessor, city assessor.
Got it. Yes, we hear it all different ways, so that's just fine. So good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Palmisano and committee members for allowing us this time to present to you highlights of the 2023 assessment. I'm Rebecca Malmquist, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the city assessor, leading a team of 38 in the classification and valuation of the properties in the city, ensuring a fair and equitable taxation system. I want to thank our staff for all their time and contributions to this report. It is not myself that puts together this report, but the team behind me, and I'd like to recognize some of them because this is really the first time I've had the opportunity to present the assessment report in front of you in 3 years, and so I want to recognize some of our team here. We have 2 team members that either had an accident or their spouse had an accident during the last ICE event, and they're not here with us. But we do have Ben Nelson, our manager of assessment services. We have Brian Messer, Rob Williamson, and Troy Halter, 2 of our appraisal supervisors, and then our extremely talented technical crew of Rachel Cruz and Ben Bedard. So first, a high-level summary and reminders about the assessment. We recently completed the January 2nd, 2023 assessment. January 2nd is the assessment date here in Minnesota, just because we like to be different. And we mailed value notices for approximately 131,000 properties, and this is an annual process that is dictated in statute. The notices of valuation and classification, otherwise known as the value notices, were mailed. They mailed last week, and the post office was just so efficient. They got them out a couple of days ahead of when we had planned, but they are in mailboxes. It is important to remind you that the 2023 estimated market values are what will be used to calculate next year's taxes payable in 2024. So what happens is we value properties in 1 year, and then the budget and the levy are set, and then taxes are paid in the following year. But we know this can be confusing because the property tax statements are usually mailed within days of the value notices. And so the payable 2023 tax statements that people received from the county were based on our assessment from last year, because again, we value 1 year and your tax the following year to allow for that appeals process in between. Another important reminder is that the data we used to set the assessment for January 2nd, 2023, we look back and we sort of say we act as historians, and we looked at sales transactions between October 21st and October of 2021, and September of 2022. So in Minnesota, property tax really do provide a significant portion of the funding for local government. Every property's share of taxes is based on its market value, its property's use, and then the local government budgets, which then become a tax rate. You can see the image at the bottom of the screen for a simplified illustration. So market value is the price that a property would sell for on the open market, and our role in the assessor's office is to reflect the real estate market and set fair and accurate market values by following the market trends. The assessor also classifies property according to its use. Different uses of properties, even if they have the same value, will pay different taxes because of the class rates that are set by our state legislator. And we'll provide an example of that on the next slide for you. The tax rate is determined using the budgets of local governments, such as here at the city, the county, school districts, and the watersheds. The intermediary step in converting value to taxes is called the tax capacity. And this slide illustrates how this works for some common types of properties here in the city. So the calculation for tax capacity is the market value, which is in the second column, multiplied by the class rates in the third column. For example, as you can see here, a residential property on the first line and a commercial property on the third line, both assessed at $300,000, will pay different taxes, and that is because the class rate for a residential property is 1% and the class rate for a commercial is 2%. So as a result, a residential property will pay approximately half the property taxes of a commercial property. I must note that this is a very simplistic illustration, however, because there are more complex factors that affect taxes, such as special tax programs like homesteading, the state general tax, as well as fiscal disparities. This is a slide of the historical view of the city's total estimated market value. The overall estimated market value, which we refer to as EMV, for the city increased by 4.2% this year to $67.5 billion. However, this does not include state-assessed properties like utilities and railroads because the state has not made those available yet. This includes, though, the new construction added for permit work, and that was over $1.08 billion for this year. This slide is a visualization of the breakdown of the three major property type categories by the 2023 market value on the left, and then the net tax capacity on the right. Because of the calculation of value to tax that we discussed on the previous slide, there is a change in the distribution between the three categories when we move from the market value on the left to the net tax capacity on the right. So you can see here that residential values in green comprise nearly 60% of the total city EMV on the left. However, when those class rates are applied, the residential portion of the tax capacity reduces to being just over 50%. You can see that the commercial value in blue comprises almost 20% of the total market value, however, comprises 30% of the net tax capacity after those rates are applied. This chart is a historical view of the tax capacity as a percentage of the total tax capacity by property type. When you compare 2022 to 2023, the two bars to the furthest right, you can see the year-to-year shift between commercial, apartment, and residential properties is very minimal this year. So overall, that means that the residential and commercial properties will bear a similar burden in payable 2024 as they did in 2023. I should note that because of the historical growth of the apartment market, both the residential and commercial properties have a similar portion of the burden, a smaller portion of the burden that was true just 10 years ago. You can see illustrated in orange in 2014, the apartment properties comprised just under 13% of the total tax capacity. However, now in 2023 comprise almost 20% of that total. This slide is the distribution of estimated market value across each ward. The larger the pie, the greater percentage of total market value that ward is comprised of. It is broken down again into the three major property type categories of apartment, commercial, industrial, and residential. Neighborhoods, as you would expect in and around downtown, have a far greater share of the commercial and apartment value in orange and blue, while the neighborhoods further away are predominantly residential, shaded in green. This slide illustrates the change in total market value by each of your wards. Each ward is represented by a blue bar, and the percent of increase is the label at the top of each bar. While last year, wards 4 and 5 saw the greatest increases in market value, this year, Ward 13 saw the overall largest growth of 8.5%.
Ms. Malmquist, did you want us to wait to the end for questions and to get through your presentation, or should we be pausing you periodically?
Chair Palmisano, whatever is your pleasure.
Councilmember Goodman has a question or a comment, and it was from a couple of slides ago.
I have lots of questions, but I'll just go back to the one on if you could go back a few slides, where it was suggested that commercial property valuations have stayed about static. That seems to be completely inconsistent with what we're hearing in the community with regard to downtown office buildings. So is it because the valuation hasn't caught up, the appeals have not been granted, tax court has not ruled in favor of properties that are big downtown office buildings that are sitting virtually empty, if there are any? Could you just comment on that a little bit?
Of course, Chair Palmisano, Councilmember Goodman. We will address in a few slides the breakdown of the downtown market versus the uptown market versus the neighborhood markets, and you will see where we are seeing a shift in the valuations. This is really just the tax capacity portion after you apply the tax rates. So if you'll be patient with me for a couple of slides, we will get there.
Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Yeah, I was just curious how static the class rates are, or are they moving quite a bit year to year based on what's happening at the state level?
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Payne, that we are really at the mercy of the legislatures when it comes to the class rates. They do tend to remain fairly static. However, there is plenty of interest in the 4D program and other programs at the legislature. And they do ask us to weigh in and provide some guidance. Minneapolis does have the highest number of 4D, so we would be the most affected. Every year during the legislative session, some of the class rates are examined, but they do tend to stay fairly static.
And then, have we ever been strong lobbyists for changing those class rates to better suit the actual makeup of our tax base, or are we kind of on the sideline of that conversation for the most part?
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Payne, I would say that from a city perspective, we do tend to, from my perspective, stay fairly silent. The State Association of Minnesota Assessors, along with our lobbyist, who is actually a lobbyist for AMC, Association Minnesota Counties, they do weigh in occasionally about the class rates, and usually our stance is a simplification because the state of Minnesota has more class rates than any other state in the country.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to actually answer Councilmember Payne's question. There was class rate compression during the Pawlenty years. So prior to the time that Pawlenty became governor, commercial paid a lot more and residential paid a lot less. And the legislature at that time did what was called class rate compression. And they brought the commercial and closer to residential and apartments, and we have been feeling the effects of that ever since. It is something only the state can do, so we don't have the power to expand the compression or reduce it. The last time that there was a major disagreement over this was also when the This Old House regulation went away, so you used to be able to get a benefit if you had an older home. All of that went away during the Pawlenty years, which I know a lot of people on the council probably don't even remember that time. But I was here then, and I remember it, and we've never really recovered from that compression, making it more difficult for residential. If I remember correctly, just the 7th Ward at that time was about 40% of the tax base. And now you can see here the commercial industrial combined is only 30%. So we pay a lot less for commercial than residential. Commercial pays a lot less than they did in the past.
Councilmember Payne, unless you wanted to interject, Ms. Malmquist.
I was just going to thank Councilmember Goodman for the historical context.
Councilmember Payne.
Yeah, I was just going to wrap this up by saying, just wanted to put this into the space of maybe this is a conversation worth having with IGR as we're looking at these kind of macro trends as it relates to our tax base and, you know, the role commercial is playing in our downtown districts. And we know that taxes are a little bit funky in the COVID era. And I'm just curious if that's something that we have an appetite to kind of form a stronger opinion on.
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Payne, I would say that the word that we tend to use, team, is we have a bifurcated market. What we think is going on is not always represented in the sales transactions that we see. There is money to be spent by investors, and they will spend this money, and we will do the sales verification. And we cannot make sense of how they got to the numbers that they're getting to. And we are expected to follow the sales transactions if they're open market, and if they are open market transactions, then that's what we're measured on. Our assessed values need to be within a certain range of those sale prices. So it's telling us to increase values, but then we're seeing vacancies in the buildings. That is also telling us something, especially when these leases are going to start coming up in the next few years as we move further along after the pandemic, or we're still in the pandemic, but what is going to be really telling is when some of these 5 and 10-year leases come up, and if people renew, or if we're going to have more vacancy. So the sales prices and then the other market indicators are telling us different things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I believe this is where I left off, and this is a historical look at the total residential. This is just residential value growth. This year, the overall residential market grew by 3.4%. It is interesting that this does mark the 11th straight year of residential value increases here in the city. So while the previous slides illustrated an overall value increase of residential properties, this slide further breaks down the data into the major property type categories. We use condominium and townhome, duplex and triplex, and then the single family category. Overall, there were increases in the duplex, triplex, and single-family submarkets, and a decrease in the condominium submarket. However, while last year the decreases in the condominium market were driven by the large complexes in downtown and uptown, this year the distributions that we're seeing of decreases were much more equally distributed geographically across the city. I do want to point out that this year we had over $260 million, though, still in new construction in our residential market. So I'm going to get into some of the great statistical details here. And we thought about taking this piece out, but this is how we're measured very closely by the state, and I think it's really important that we at least take a couple minutes to speak to these. So our assessment is closely scrutinized by the state to ensure accuracy and equity. We follow requirements mandated by the state, and those are based on the International Association of Assessing Officers, the Standard on Ratio Studies, and a Standard on Mass Appraisal. This data reflects the residential market. The analysis is of properties that have sold, so that we can compare our assessed values to what they're selling for, to analyze how accurate and equitable the values are in comparison to the sale prices. So the first measurement I will review is the sales ratio, which is the third column. This is a measure of the level of assessment. It is a comparison of the estimated market value to the sale price of a property. Simply stated, it is the assessed value divided by the sale price. So we use the median ratio as our measure of central tendency. So looking at the bottom row of the nearly 5,700 sales, the median ratio is 95.5%. An acceptable median ratio is between 90 to 105. However, I do want to point out that we want to be consistent with our surrounding jurisdictions, and we all typically try to aim for a median of 95%. We do not want to be at a significantly different assessment level than Edina or St. Louis Park, because that would be providing somewhat of a tax advantage to one city over the others. So we have close conversations with my colleagues in all of the surrounding suburbs at the county, and then even surrounding counties, to make sure that we are consistently targeting a 95% sales ratio. So our ratio does meet this requirement. The second measure is the coefficient of dispersion, or COD. It measures how uniform the assessment is. And an acceptable range for the city of Minneapolis would be less than 15%, or less than 15, and we do meet this requirement as well. And the last and very important measurement is the price-related differential, or PRD. And this measures the equity, the vertical equity of the assessment. So this can be a little confusing, but when lower valued properties are valued greater than higher valued properties, our assessment would be considered regressive. When low-valued properties are valued at a lower percentage than high-valued properties, it's considered progressive. But an assessment for tax purposes should neither be regressive or progressive, and our assessment is within the acceptable range for that. And that's a very important measurement. It's relatively new in the past 5-7 years, but we do look at that very closely. This is a historical look at all of those statistics, and I just really want to point out here that our assessment continues to improve. Very proud of the staff and the work that we do in our analysis at a city level, at a community level, at a neighborhood level, at a block level, when we need to ensure a really tight, solid assessment. This slide illustrates the comparison of the median sale price, which is the blue line, to the median value in orange. The lines should be close together and going in the same direction. So you can see that this measurement has also been improving. Our median estimated market value increased 4.4% this year. We increased from $315,000 to $329,000. This is always a fun and interesting slide because it gives you an idea of the breakdown of the percentage increases or decreases for property. So it is telling you what the value changed from 2022 to 2023. So nearly 2/3 of all of our residential properties saw an increase up to 10%, and that's illustrated there by the green and the orange bars. Moving on to some maps. This is a map of the single-family changes by ward, so this is down to the parcel level. Growth this year was more equally distributed across the city than we really have seen in previous years. In previous years, you'll recall, and we'll talk about it again, is that we've seen a lot more of the growth in wards 4 and 5, but really this year it was much more equally distributed. So this is a representation of the aggregate of all residential changes by neighborhood. This does include our condominiums, townhomes, duplexes, and triplexes as well. Again, you'll see that there was more equal distribution of the changes than there were in previous years. Okay, another ward comparison of residential values and the same statistical measurements that we talked about before. So the columns to the left are the 2022 and 2023 market values, the amount of new construction in each of your wards, and the net change in total value. Moving across the chart is also the median EMV in each of your wards, the number of sales that we processed this year, the median sale price, as well as the sales ratio and COD. What I really want to mention here is when you look at the sales ratio column, which is the second column from the end, the range is between all the wards is 94.8 to 96%, and that's a really tight range indicating great consistency in the level of assessment across each of your wards. Also, the COD, or the measure of uniformity across the city, is 6.3 to 8.5, and again, uniformity across the city. Let's pivot now to the commercial assessment. Separating commercial from industrial, you will see overall increases in both markets in the last column. However, the industrial market saw a much more significant increase of 23.6% compared to the commercial market increase of 3.8%. This is the second straight year of double-digit growth in the industrial market, and it is the largest growth in any of our one property types in the city. However, this is not unique to Minneapolis and really reflects a region-wide trend that we're seeing across the jurisdiction borders. This is a historical look at the commercial and industrial market values. While we saw an overall decrease in 2021, this is the second straight year of growth in the commercial industrial markets. The aggregate EMV of $13.2 billion has it now exceeded the pre-pandemic high of $12.8 billion in 2020. So while overall the commercial industrial market is trending up again, that is not true for all geographical submarkets, and they have not all rebounded. This slide separates out the downtown and uptown submarkets, the commercial market outside of downtown and uptown, and then the industrial market. you can see here that we're still seeing overall value decreases in the downtown market. So let's look at the statistics for the commercial industrial. We do see the median ratio and COD are all in acceptable range, but that PRD, that measure of vertical equity, is just outside the range, and so that's on our watch list for 2024. A quick pivot to the apartment market. The net increase this year was 3%, and we had $605 million in new construction. Again, the ratio and the COD are acceptable, and the PRD is slightly high, so we will continue to watch that for next year. Now let's talk about the value notices. They were mailed last March, and magically, the post office had them delivered in what felt like less than 24 hours. The notices were color-coded in yellow this year to align with Hennepin County's initiative to color-code a value notice with the tax statement, so their next year's tax statement will be highlighted in yellow so that they can track how a value notice becomes a tax statement. So if property owners have questions or concerns regarding their value, they should contact the appraiser who is listed on the back of their notice, and their phone number is listed there. If they have questions about the homestead status, that contact information is located there. And information about the appealing is also located on the value notice. I do want to talk about a few of the existing and new public tools that we have. On the left-hand side is property info that's located on the website, where property owners can look up by address or the PID number and get a lot of information about their property, some characteristics data, their value history, rental information. There's even the lead paint status. So that's a really good tool local that we have here. On the bottom left is a neighborhood sales finder. So what we've tried to do is provide a tool so that property owners can go in, if they don't have access anywhere else, and put in the neighborhood they want to find sales about, and they could put in date range, sale range, the size or the year, and this will pull comparable sales for them to get them started to review if they think that their market value may be inaccurate, and it can provide them some sales transactions, which would be the same sales transactions that our team would use as well. The top right is the levy impact estimator that we created last year for the budget process, and we will be using that again for the next budget cycle. And the bottom right is just a really cool dashboard that will go live tomorrow evening, designed by our great technical team here, where there's a bunch of filters. You can filter by ward and community, neighborhood, and really drill down and learn about the median values in each of those neighborhoods. That's the beginning of our dashboard that we hope to expand on. Some key dates, again, value notices are in the mail. April 17 convenes our local Board of Appeal and Equalization. You have appointed on Thursday you will do your final appointment of the 4th board member. And our board meetings will again be, will for the first time since the pandemic, be in person. We were for the first boards and commissions to go virtual, and we were the last to stay virtual last year, so we are going to be here in City Hall as we're moving to City Hall. We are going to leverage the beautiful new room down on first floor in 143 for our board meetings, and we are excited to be back here in City Hall. They will reconvene on the 18th, and they'll continue to add sessions till they've heard all of their cases. And then the next step is the Hennepin County Board of Appeal and Equalization. Our staff does still continue to work all of those cases, but then they're heard by the county board. This is a map where it is of our plan for this summer, and all of the neighborhoods shaded in pink are where our staff will be in this summer. They'll be out sending letters and knocking on doors. They're all working as an entire team, moving their way through the neighborhoods, which we've found to be a great success. We have about 23,000 parcels on the residential side to look at this summer. And there are just two other things that I just did want to bring up that I didn't have a slide for, and I already did mention it. One is our move back here to City Hall. We're delighted to be moving out of our boxes and having a home here in City Hall and being closer to all of you. And the other is a quick update on our CAMA conversion, computer-aided mass appraisal system that you funded. Thank you in the recent budget years. And we have been delighted to work with the the vendor and the IT team here. Usually this would be a few-year conversion, and it's really gone really well, and thanks to our team who are doing that on top of their regular work, and we're going to go live still this year. And that's very exciting, and so we'll have a lot more public-facing tools and options for our property owners to have access to a more transparent system. So as that begins to roll out, we will notify all of you. And with that, that concludes my report. Thank you again to our team, and thank you for all of your time.
Thank you. There are some questions or comments. I'll start with Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great report. Really well presented, easy to understand. I definitely think the public in watching this could understand it, so great job. I thought we weren't supposed to have our own assessor. Didn't the state change the law so that the county is going to be doing our assessments? Can you bring us up to speed on what's happening with that?
Yes.
And then I have a second question after that.
Chair
I'm not
Pal-
saying I agree, I'm just wondering what's happening.
Okay. Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Goodman, you are correct that there was legislation passed in a Department of Revenue technical bill where the language was quite innocuous about what it meant, and there's even confusion in the bill's summaries about what the language meant. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office has their own interpretation, meaning that the authority of the final assessment, while we would still do the assessment, the county would have authority over, like if they didn't like what we did and they wanted the downtown values to be higher, they could go in and do that without our authorization. They also would be taking over a few of our other main tasks that we do, that we pride ourselves in, such as homesteading, and we would lose that point of contact, and our staff are oftentimes the first point of contact for a new property owner when they homestead their property, and we would be losing control of that, in addition to approval of exemptions, and if there was another disaster assessment, the county's opinion is our staff would no longer handle that. We do have two bills, one in the House and one in the Senate, to reverse the language. However, it is moving quite slowly, and there's not complete confidence or much confidence that we're going to be able to get it done in this session. So we will keep you up to date as we hear about next steps.
Madam Chair, if it hasn't been passed through one committee, it's not going to happen. So aren't we at that point now in the legislative process? I believe we are, but, so they don't have the ability to eliminate our assessor's office. They can just take powers away. That's kind of where we're at. But they haven't taken any powers away yet, right? Or they have taken powers away.
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Goodman, it is their opinion that as of the date of enactment, which would have gone back to August of 2021, that they would have all of these powers now.
Have they acted on any of the powers, Madam Chair?
Chair and Councilmember Goodman, to some degree, they have attempted that, correct?
Okay, well, that's probably something the administration can deal with. I'm just curious as to, I heard they were eliminating our assessor's office, and I felt like we should have some sort of update on that. My second question has to do with giving advice to constituents with regard to how to handle filing an appeal. People come to me a lot over this. I'm wondering if it would be fair to say that if your valuation increased beyond what your neighborhood valuation was, that would be a place where you should pay attention. Whereas if your valuation did not increase past the amount that the neighborhood did, you should feel lucky. Is that an okay assessment? I mean, my valuation doubled what my neighborhood valuation is. I'll use myself as an example since I've had to do that many times in the past. Should I be concerned about that it doubled, more than doubled what the neighborhood valuation was? Or is that, or the CAMA system is super detailed, and so therefore CAMA has decided that's what my property is worth if I was going to sell it in that period, so don't bother.
Chair Palmisano, Councilmember Goodman, I always appreciate your questions. I would caution you in saying that if your value went up more than what we are saying the aggregate value went up in that map, that is just one point of reference. But our assessment is much more granular than that, in that a house and the characteristics of it are used to compare to very similar homes that have sold. And the market does move each year. And the desires of property buyers are different. And so some segments of the market can be hotter than others, some styles of homes, different sizes of homes, the age of a home. The garage location can be particularly important in some neighborhoods. So I wouldn't say that the best point of context would be that what that aggregate change was. It was really just to let you know what each neighborhood did, but really to take a better look at, and that sales finder, to look at the properties that are within the same square footage as yours, the same vintage as yours, the same, geographical area, and then make a decision if you think that we are higher than what some of those sales prices would be.
Okay. Because I don't know how the CAMA system would take into account the style of the house, where the garage is located. It doesn't get that granular, does it? It says, okay, you have a bungalow, bungalows are selling more than 4 squares, therefore bungalows get a 2% increase and 4 squares don't? And how does CAMA play into that? I thought it's kind of a baseline of how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what neighborhood, that kind of thing.
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Goodman, through the modeling process, we do look at the characteristics that are contributing to value. And sometimes the two-story market may be hotter, more desirable than a one-story market or an expansion market. So we do get that granular, we do look at that. We do know where the garage is located, how large the garage is, what condition the garage is. We do carry all that characteristics data. And so then we make a decision, our technical team does, about which of those aspects are really driving the market. Our team does sales verification and they talk to all the buyers. Like, what was the thing that really you loved about that house? Like, what was driving the value for you? So we do try to get a really clear understanding of why one home is more desirable than another.
Ms. Malmquist, the new dashboard that you depict on one of these slides shows a lot of impressive information. Did I hear you correctly that it will be going live tomorrow? And how would somebody get there? I was able to look up just Property Finder Minneapolis and get to the city site. I haven't yet gotten it to replicate the kind of detail on your slide. Can you just make sure that we know how to reach it?
Yes. Chair Palmisano, yes, it's going live tomorrow on Wednesday. What has to happen now with the new IT governance is IT has to make sure that it meets all the standards and the requirements. And I believe we were told by our team that it's going to go live tomorrow. There'll be a link on our website, and I'm happy to send you another email and share with you the link and all of the information so that you can share it with your constituents.
Thank you. That would be great. The other question I have for now is, what do we attribute the enormous growth in the industrial space that we have? We have precious little industrial zoned areas in our city shrinking all the time, and yet that value increased a lot. So what might that be attributed to, and how many sales do we really have in those spaces to consider?
Chair Palmisano, that is a very good question. So if on our sales slides screen, I believe we had 8 industrial sales, very, very small sales pool. If there aren't at least 6 sales, the state won't even look at that sales pool, that sample. But we had 8, and our staff does a very good verification, but we have to expand that beyond just our city and look at what's happening with the industrial market, and it's happening all across the metro. Rogers, Minnetonka, it's really happening everywhere. And while we don't want to be super speculative about it, there's a lot of online shopping going on, and the space is needed for some storage of those items. And so that is just one of the factors, but our team continues to do the verification to help better understand it.
Thank you. Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the appeals process, and specifically, I'm hoping you can share maybe anecdotal or as much detail as you have right now, historically where appeals come from, and then who is granted those appeals, and I'm looking for by geography, in what part of the city do we see the largest amount of appeals, and in what part of the city do we see those appeals granted? And then I'm also looking for by category, residential, industrial, commercial, apartments, who appeals and who gets granted those appeals.
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Chugtai, I should have written all those down. As far as anecdotally, we do map the appeals from year to year. So we have a clear map for at least the past 5 years of where those appeals have come from. They do historically come from Ward 13, or the wards in the southern part of the city. They're very, very active when it comes to appealing their property value, and less of our appeals come from the wards in the northern part of the city. The majority of the appeals through the local board and county board process are residential. That's the best avenue for them to use. When we're talking about the IDS or the Hilton downtown, their best avenue is to go through the Minnesota Tax Court. It's a much more formal process, but then they, both sides have an expert, and there's full narrative appraisals that are written, and that's really the best option for them, because our local board is not necessarily equipped or knowledgeable in those types of properties. And so historically, that's what we've been seeing. We're trying to continue to find ways to educate and provide outreach to all of the neighborhoods. And one of the things that we are doing is, even tonight and then again tomorrow, I will be presenting to the Neighborhood and Community Relations Neighborhood Association meetings to provide information. And then what happens, and it's been happening somewhat successfully, is then they'll invite us to their neighborhood meetings to provide information about how to appeal and the different steps. We're trying to do a much better job of preparing appellants, because sometimes they will just show up and they're not prepared with something for the board to really present, and the burden of proof falls on the appellant, and so that they're really prepared with comparable sales or information about their property. So we're trying to do a much better job to prepare them for the appeal process, because it's the only tax that you can appeal, right? And so we want them to be as informed as possible, so that they feel like it was a fair process.
That's really helpful. Thank you. So just a couple of follow-ups. Very helpful to understand that most appeals are in the residential category, and that they disproportionately come out of the southwestern part of the city. Do you know? Can you tell me how many of these appeals are granted, and where geographically where the granted appeals are in the city?
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Chugtai, I do have all of that information. We track it from year to year. And it's like a flow chart, because first of all, people will call and go through the informal process and work the staff appraiser assigned to them. If the appraiser decides, yes, our value's too high, they can reduce it then, and then they don't have to appeal to the formal board, as long as it's within the statutory required deadline. And so I do have the number of how many actually go through each step of the process and how many are granted, and I can provide you that. I just don't have it at my fingertips.
That's great. Yep. And then you said you keep a map, like this flow chart and a map of where appeals have come from going back the last 5 years. Is that publicly available, and where would a person go to find that information?
Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Chugtai, yes. So after the local board adjourns, I come back before POGO or COW and do a presentation on what happened transpired. And so that PowerPoint presentation is available in LIMS, but I can happily pull out the last few years and those specific slides that you've been asking about and give you some historical context.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. That's all I've got.
Councilmember Goodman?
Thank you. This is my last thing, I promise. You said that you had a bunch of your team members here, and we have never been able to meet them. Do you think you could introduce the members of your team so we could put a name with a face?
Yes, Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Goodman, thank you. Yes, we'll do this. All right, so assessor team. We have, let's go, Ben Nelson. Ben is our manager of assessment services, and he leads the technical team that does all the modeling, the mapping, and all of that. Thank you, Ben. And then if we have 3 appraisal supervisors, Brian, Troy, and Rob, if you would stand. They are the ones that train and lead all of the appraisers in the residential and the neighborhood commercial properties.
If you could stand closer to the mic so that we
I'm
can
so
capture
sorry.
it. Yeah.
Got so excited. So they lead the residential team, they lead the neighborhood commercial team, and the neighborhood apartment teams. Okay? And then we also have Brian Keyser, but again, his wife was injured and had surgery today. He's not here. Brian is the chief appraiser. He's in charge of all things tax court related, all the appeals, and he leads the CBD team. There's 4 appraisers assigned to the downtown CBD team. And then we have Nancy Wojcik, who has my previous position. She's the director, and she's out on medical leave, but she leads our administrative team, and then everything else. She is the most knowledgeable assessor in this state, and she's going to retire in 2 years. So we're trying to take advantage of every ounce of brain power that she has. And then we have our amazing technical team that produces this report and all these amazing new dashboards. We have Ben Bedard and Rachel Cruz right there. Rachel recently came to us from the clerk's office, So we're super psyched to have her. So thank you for that opportunity.
Madam Chair, in all the years, and I've worked with 3 different assessors, there isn't anyone who has been more passionate and proud to be the assessor than Ms. Malmquist. It's a big deal. And to rise to the top of your profession as a woman in this very highly technical area and care so much about it, it's just an incredible thing. And I just wanted to point that out. We are very lucky to have you and your whole team. And the fact that you were able to bring your team today, everyone's like, oh, it's the tax assessor, that's a negative. But actually, it's not a negative. And the report today essentially proves that it's statistically based, it's grounded in facts and reality, and that the team that's working on this is so incredibly proud of their work. How can we not be proud of you as well? Thank you for introducing everyone.
Thank you. You made my year.
Thank you, and I know we all concur up here. I think the last question will be from Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I know you mentioned earlier, you threw in the word vacancies. I forgot what the context of that was, but I'm really interested to know if there's any way that's taken into account when determining the EMV, especially when it comes to commercial and residential. This is a key interest of mine because in parts of my ward that soon will be handed off here to Council Member Chavez, there's been a number of commercial vacant commercial properties. I know that happens all across the city, in northern parts too, but definitely around the East Lake Street, we've seen commercial property spaces just sit vacant for years. There's definitely, some owners that can be traced down. I like how you said online shopping, because sometimes these property owners are absentee. But what has come out is some are just holding onto these properties, land banking for what you've, assessed is like, waiting for values to rise to hopefully sell to the highest bidder. But, community members are more so excited to see some of those properties become of, use for the whole neighborhood. So I'm not sure if that's taken into the account. Same with residential. I know we've been in conversations with some of our CPED staff and rec services about the new construction pieces. We're getting all of that revenue, but do we actually have an account of, how many of our units, especially newly constructed units, are being occupied or just sitting empty? or also being used for short-term rentals. So I wasn't sure, this is a big issue that I know I've had a number of curated conversations in my ward about, and wasn't sure if that's also being factored into how we're determining our market rates. And you mentioned the word vacancy. I was like, wait, what? Yes, I got to follow up about that.
Chair Palmisano, Councilmember Wansley. Yes, in that context, I was really speaking to the vacancy in the downtown office market, because there were leases signed, but then the pandemic, and now we know that a lot of those spaces are sitting empty, and then what's going to happen when those leases come up? But there's going to be compression, people are moving to maybe the suburbs, things like that. So that's something that we're tracking, but what we really look at is market vacancy. It's not the actual vacancy for each property. We look at what is the market vacancy for a group of properties. Like, what is the market vacancy for all of the Class A office buildings downtown? What is the market vacancy for neighborhoods along Lake and things like that? So it's not what is the individual vacancy for that building, it's what overall is the market value or market vacancy, so that we can apply a fair and equitable approach to all of the properties. As far as you brought up short-term rentals, our department is tasked with tracking all the short-term rentals. We survey every short-term rental that we think is a short-term rental, because there are different state statute implications, and Brian Messer and Nancy on our team are surveying all of those every year to make sure we're classifying them correctly. So we do have somewhat of an idea. We work close with Reg Services on that. And then when it comes to other residential properties, we do our best to have a better understanding. When it comes to new construction and how many units, if we're talking about an apartment building, we know that it takes a while for all of those units to rent up, and that is something that we use in our valuation process. We don't assume that they're 100% all occupied right away, and we do phase that in as they start to get leased and occupied. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you for providing that clarification.
Thank you. I think we're through. Thank you for this report. Clerk, please receive and file this report. And
Thank you.
We're done with this part of the agenda. Moving on and transitioning to item number 4. Item number 4 is an update on the progress of an improvement plan following the 2020 Civil Unrest After Action Report. Presenting to start off the presentation is Director Barrett Lane, our Office of Emergency Management, to start the presentation on this item. Welcome, Director Lane.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Pleased to be here today to provide you the 5th quarterly update on progress associated with the improvement plan following the 2020 After Action Review. We're going to follow the same format as we've done in previous presentations. We'll give a quick overview. I will update you on the progress of the NIMS reset that we've talked about, and then I'll be turning it over to my colleagues who have individual items across the enterprise that are being worked on as a part of this project. Just to remind you of where we've been, as I say, this is the 5th report to this group. We also did, as I'm sure you know, a written summary of the progress that was made in 2022 that's been made available to you. If you have questions about that, we're certainly willing to discuss that. The focus of this presentation is really to span the gap between that November verbal presentation and where we're at here today. But that should really wrap up everything you've heard in the past in any event. But we're certainly willing to discuss those today here as well. Reminding you about the just general approach to this work. Most of this work is now transitioned into the Office of Community Safety, although we do continue to rely on the Emergency Management Advisory Committee to provide that cross-group connection with our colleagues in the Office of Public Service. So both of those groups continue to shepherd this work forward. As you may recall, we really broke the work that came out of the After Action Report down into 2 big buckets. One is this NIMS reset, the National Incident Management Reset. We've taken all of those systemic type of projects, bundled them together, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. We are still working toward and focused on a capstone exercise where we're going to demonstrate improvement across all of those lines, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. The remaining recommendations of the 27 that we've been asked to address are being addressed at the department level as we go forward here, and we'll also touch on that as well. So we'd like to give you a one-page scorecard here. You may have seen in the 2020 summary, the written summary, we've got a complete scorecard as well as commentary on each of these items in there. If you want to take back a look at historically at what happened in 2022. Highlighted in yellow here are the three major shifts that we've seen. We are actually crossing two more off the list, recommendation number 6 and recommendation number 25. On recommendation number 3, as we were preparing for this discussion here today, it appears that there may have been a miscommunication in terms of the handoff on who's responsible for this. And if there is a miscommunication, I will certainly take responsibility for that. Initially, we triaged this as being sort of community engagement work. Further work into the specific recommendation references a training program that was instituted by Charlotte Police. And this turns out to be a training program that is intended for tactical officers who are directly engaged with the community in particular incidents. So this is something that needs to go back to MPD and their training staff to further understand how that fits in their overall training process and what they currently have going on. But that was something that was a change that was made at the end of last year. And again, if that was not entirely communicated and my colleague from MPD is not fully prepared on that, that's because that handoff may not have been completely made. And again, if that's the case, we'll take responsibility for that. But you'll be hearing more about that as we go forward. The other thing I wanted to emphasize here as we look at the scorecard is there was no expectation that all of this was going to be done by the end of 2022. I think one of the inadvertent messages that got sent by having that written report was somehow to communicate that there are things that should have been done that didn't. And that is not the case. I want to assure everyone that this work is continuing. Each department that's doing this work has triaged it with all the other things that they've been charged to do. So all of this work is moving, and at this point in time, all of these things are actually in progress at one level or another. So I'd like you to just kind of keep that in mind, that the expectation wasn't just because we drew an end at 2022 that somehow these opens are not legitimately open. If nothing else, we're going to be running the NIMS reset project through 2024. So we do have some time here where we're going to have to take the time to further implement these various programs. So let's talk, that gives you sort of a sense of where we're at just generally with the enterprise projects. Let's talk about the NIMS reset. I'm going to move this, if I may. You've seen this probably, well, you've seen it many times now. This is the overall schematic of the various components that we're working on within the concept of this reset. And as we did the root cause analysis throughout the after action report, it was really these 4 components and how they work together that needed to be re-examined and retrained and then re-exercised. So we're talking about incident command. So that's the police department, the fire department. They have that delegated authority to direct tactical resources to solve or to respond to an incident. That's incident command. The jurisdictional EOC, which is emergency management's responsibility, is that coordination function across the enterprise, reaching up to the state, the federal government. The Joint Information System, which is the sort of the public affairs aspect of all of this, and then the MAC group, which is the Mayor's Executive Emergency Cabinet. All 4 of these components need to work in sync. So we'll talk about, again, how we're looking at that. But that's how these 4 things relate together in a major incident response. I'm not going to go through this in any detail. These are the number of findings that had to do with the National Incident Management System and the Incident Command System. If you recall, the Incident Command System, ICS, is actually a part of the broader National Incident Management System, but there's a lot of pieces here that are behind this NIMS reset. The specific recommendations that we have here are these. So we're responding to these specifically. So there's department level work that needs to be done here, as well as enterprise level work as we reintroduce all of this back into the system and work toward that capstone experience that we're going to have in 2024. So what are we attempting to accomplish here? We're gonna go back to the basics. We're gonna make sure that our incident command system functions as designed per the National Incident Management System. We're gonna make sure that the EOC works as designed, that the Joint Information System and the MAC group works as designed, and then we're gonna make sure that each of them works with each other in the way that they should. So all of these components are coming together. In 2022, we scoped this situation. We estimated the amount of training and testing and exercising that we need to do. We released contracts for that training and exercising, and then launched the training program. This timeline here gives you sort of a general sense of the training and exercising that we're going to be doing. If you look on pages, and you don't have to look, but just for your reference, in the 2022 report on pages 9 through 11 will give you the specific tests or exercises and the specific trainings that we're doing. And if you have questions about any of those particular things, that we'd be happy to answer those. But what we're really doing is breaking down all of these functions, particularly within the incident command system, down to individual staff functions. So there's individualized training for the incident commander. There's individualized training for the liaison officer. These are specific positions. So we're actually training down to that level of expertise to make sure that everybody's well positioned as we go into our capstone exercise, hopefully with FEMA in 2024. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Interspersed with the training are a number of exercises, and these exercises are intended to give us a down check on progress across the whole team. So we want to make sure that as we train people, that they can then perform at that level of expectation. If not, we can do additional work, but we want to make sure that people are coming along with this as we go forward. There's a progressive building within this. We need to make sure that we can operate in single command before we can operate in unified command. We need to make sure that command is established and the emergency operations center is established before we attempt to put the two together. So there's a timeline that runs through this that builds these capacities, one on top of another as we continue to go toward that 2024 capstone. This is a slide that didn't really need pictures on it, but I was so happy to see green grass and flowers on the trees that I decided to put this in here just because I think we all need a little green grass and flowers on the trees. But this is a picture of the Emergency Management Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and that's where we're hoping to have this course. This is something that the mayor has signed off on, has strongly supported, the state has supported, and is now pending before FEMA for a decision as to whether or not this course will be granted for us or not. This is a big lift. This is the same course that, if you remember, people talk about the Mount Weather experience that really launched this sort of phase of emergency management within the city of Minneapolis. This is that class. And so we're taking our enhanced capabilities back to that platform to demonstrate that, in fact, we can work at that level. So that's the plan here. If for some reason we do not get this class from FEMA, this is a by application only type of experience, we will come up with a different way to have the same experience. So we'll make sure that we have the platform and the stage to show all the good work that's been going on here when we get to 2024. So the next steps in this space, the capstone will be coming up. We should get the decision from FEMA in May. And then we're going to continue to implement that training and exercise plan as we go forward throughout the rest of the year here. So we'll just keep marching down that list of punch point items that you saw earlier on the slide. So let's then segue from the NIMS reset, and I think this is well underway, and I think before we move on, I just want to recognize the fact that even though we've found budget for much of all of the actual contracting we need to do for the training and exercises, this is not, doesn't come without a cost to the enterprise. And I do want to thank all the department heads who are participating in this and making the staff time available to take part in some of these trainings and exercises. Some of these are 5 days long. This is a big commitment for individual people, but we really are investing in people's skill sets that we want them to be successful at the end of this project. From emergency management departments, and we'll segue now into department level projects here. The original 3 that were assigned to us were completed in 2022. I'm not going to go back through that. We did pick up 2. These were started with the city attorney's office. They did the legal work, and we've picked these 2 up to operationalize them. That is coming up with recommendations for public protective actions. What should people in community do to prepare for or respond to this? And then we are dealing with the issue of curfew waivers. We expect to have that work done within the next 30 days. So that is something that's pending in my organization right now. And I think I jumped ahead of my slides here. These are basically just, again, the legal opinions received, and we're working on the operational plan. I would expect to see this next month. And with that, and the caveat earlier on recommendation number 3, I'm going to turn it over to DC Schoenberger for MPD's part of the presentation.
Thank you. Welcome, Deputy Chief.
Chair Palmisano, members of the committee, thank you. It's very kind of Director Lane to take responsibility for this, but I do believe it's my error that resulted in MPD not taking action since December on this recommendation number 3. And I'll note that it's not having taken formal action on recommendation number 3. It's something that we do informally. This idea of constructive conversation teams and engaging with the community during times of crisis, that's something that we do. It's based on relationships that we already have established, but we do want to formalize that process. We do want to expand it to include other people, other members of the department. Ideally, that's something that would have been done by the community engagement team, which we no longer have. So we'll need to assemble a group of officers, provide them training in emergency communications and helping to establish some of those relationships in advance of a crisis so that the relationships are built and we're prepared to better engage with them during times of crisis. So we will continue to build our competencies around recommendation number 3. As far as the NIMS reset, what it looks like practically for MPD, it's a variety of classes. Everyone in the department is required to take these ICS classes. It's 1, 2, 700, 800, 300, and 400. What that looks like in real life is 1, 2, 7, and 8 are about 12 hours of online training. ICS 300 is 24 hours. ICS 400 is 16 hours. In addition to that, select members of the department take additional training. I will be in 40 hours of training next week for incident management training, another 40 hours the week after that for, incident commander training. So by the end of April, I'll have over 120 hours of training just in NIMS. By the end of the year, it'll be over 150 with some of the single-day exercises that we're going to be doing. So I wanted to share that so that you understand not just the scope, but the amount of commitment that the MPD makes to training for this reset. It is significant, but it is important, and we're committed to doing it. Workforce analysis and leadership training. This is something that's ongoing. We've done some parts of it already, including the last update that I shared with you related to use of human resources to build leadership competencies as part of our promotional process and making sure that we're identifying promotional candidates to sergeant and lieutenant or appointed positions to make sure that those people have the knowledge, skills, and abilities necessary to lead at the next level. One of the things that we've done recently is, again, connecting with human resources, learning and development, and looking at some dates that we can bring other city staff together with some consultants to continue to build on that. Right. Civil disturbance policy, this is one of the items that we are able to mark off of our list. We needed to make some changes to the civil disturbance policy, which we had done prior to the last update, but it had not yet been implemented, so that went into effect on January 1st, 2023. A lot of changes to our policy had occurred shortly after June of 2020, but we continue to revise that policy and ensure that that we have a civil disturbance policy that's consistent with best practice and model policies, say from IACP or Minnesota Post Board. So we are considering recommendation 6 complete. Recommendations 11 and 12, leadership and continuity of service. This is in process. We have identified command staff to ensure that if there is a major crisis, while some members of the command staff in the department are assigned to manage that incident, that other leaders are identified that will ensure continuity of service, such as your traditional patrol or investigations. What makes that challenging is that it may depend on where the crisis is at. So if there's a major crisis on the south side that affects the 3rd and 5th precinct, we would rely on leadership of the 2nd and 5th, or 2nd and 4th precinct on the north end of town to work on continuity of the rest of the city. So that is something that is in place, that we have regular discussions about, but again, is on a case-by-case basis as far as how that's actually going to look in reality. Civil unrest planning, recommendation number 12. As noted in the last update, this plan is being developed with Public Works. I believe that's near completion, and so we hope to have those written procedures formalized prior to the next update. Recommendations 24 and 25. Recommendation 24 is near complete. Recommendation 25 is complete. So in terms of employee wellness, as you know, we did sign the contract and have started using our trauma-informed psychological services provider, LE Mental Health. They have already hit the ground running hard and fast. They have been attending every in-service training session that is phase 1 of our in-service training, so they have an opportunity to actually engage with us. Part of phase 1 in-service training included responding to critical incidents, making sure that supervisors understand their role in a critical incident, and LE Mental Health was actually on site with us in every single one of those training sessions so that they can see how we're trained, they can experience a actual simulated critical incident, and actually be a part of that right there as it's happening. So it was a really great partnership. They are in phase 2 of in-service training. They have a 2-hour block of instruction where they're going to present their services and what they're able to provide to the department. Phase 2 of in-service training actually starts with a command staff preview on this Thursday. So what we have left on employee wellness is hiring a wellness manager. That is something that this is our second go at trying to hire someone. We did not have enough, we didn't have a qualified candidate in the last go around. We have a list of candidates now that just need to be interviewed, and so we hope to have somebody in place in that position soon that can help oversee implementation of all of our wellness services, including what's provided by LE Mental Health. Investigation surge capacity is specific to allegations of police misconduct, whether those go to Office of Police Conduct Review or Internal Affairs. This surge capacity most recently has been done using a contracted law firm who actually did it pro bono, but they took on, I believe it was 29 misconduct cases. Nearly all of those are complete. Going forward, we are looking at other ways to do that through a law firm locally. I believe the RFP is in the works for that, but it'd be the same concept, just someone local to avoid some of the complications that we had with using a firm that was not local. But that process is ongoing and will continue, but we believe that that recommendation is actually complete. We have a workable solution that we've been actively doing. I'll turn it over to Chief Tyner with fire unless there's questions.
There aren't any questions for you, Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Chief Tyner. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. So for the MFD, we have a relatively short list, and I think it's because ICS and NIMS, and a lot of that is part of our base training that we have to be a firefighter. And so luckily we're a little bit ahead of the curve there. Our NIMS training, and I know we just went through this, so I won't stick to it too long, but 100, 200 ICS, I don't know where my C went, I must have missed it. ICS 700 and 800 are all base training needed to be a firefighter. So all of our members have that. ICS 300 and 400 are classes for more complex incidents. And so all of our command staff, we had to put through that. All the ones that didn't have it, we've completed that. And so all of our command staff have the, shoot, what did I do? Sorry about that. All of our command staff have completed that. So now that we have that completed and we've rolled the proverbial educational roller coaster, we decided we're gonna get in line and do it again. So we're all gonna kind of take remedial courses in that to make sure that it keeps fresh. When I came up, once you had it, but now the recommendation is that you take a remedial course every 3 years, and so we're starting that process now. But the good news is that everybody has it, but we're gonna keep doing it and hammering it on it to make sure it stays fresh. A wise man once told me, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Span of control, that was one of the things indicated in the report that we needed to work on, and so we have done that. We made adjustments to our standard operating guidelines to make sure that whether it's a unified structure, command structure, or on the scene, that we have a span of control that is manageable. Also, we've made sure that chief officers are assigned to all areas that we may be needed, whether that's unified command, whether that's the multi-agency command center, and the emergency communications center, or 911, as well as the EOC, if it is stood up. So, that span of control, it's usually 4 to 6 personnel. Actually, what they're teaching now is it's just as many as you can handle. 4 to 6 is still what I'm comfortable with. It's what I've had my whole career, so that's what we're going to stick with. And, we committed to expanding the ICS system as needed. The nice thing about the ICS system is it's scalable. You can expand it as big as you need it, or you can shrink it down to as small as you need it, depending on the incident. Resource tracking is another primary function of the chief officer assigned to the MECC, which I just indicated we'd have people at. We actually did do that during the civil unrest, so I'm not sure how that got in there, but we made sure to indicate that that needs to be done and that everybody knows that we're doing it. And I think that one's really more about situational awareness. So that's another thing that we took on, is to increase situational awareness, not only for people that are on duty, but also our members that are off duty, so that everybody knows what's going on and what type of operational structure we are in. So that's something that's done by CAD, and the system utilizing GPS provides us with that resource tracking so that we know where our rigs are at all times, and we also know what people are assigned to those rigs. And I think that's mine, unless anyone has any questions.
I'll pause just to see if there are any questions from my colleagues. I'm not seeing any, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Director Bergstrom from City Communications. Welcome.
Thank you, Chief
Oh,
Tyner.
actually, wait. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Chief Tyner. Thank you, Chair Palmisano and committee members. My name is Greta Bergstrom. I am the city's communications director, and I'm here to give an update on 2 recommendations for the after action report. The first recommendation is recommendation number 13 that I'm reporting on, and this recommendation is rooted in the concept of the Joint Information System, or JIS. This one is regarding the city developing a citywide crisis communications plan and a response guide with instructions on responding to various scenarios. Similar to others that have come up and reported, police and fire in particular, PIO, Public Information Officer Training curriculum is underway per the NIMS reset. We also, media relations and communications staff from around the city under the Office of Public Service in the area that I direct are in the process of taking ICS 100, 200, which are both online courses and certifications. In many instances, communication staff, PIOs, are retaking that. Again, it's now past 3 years, and so we're refreshing. They are also in the process of taking ICS 300 and 400. I can't remember which is which, but one is a 2-day in-person course, the other is a 3-day in-person course. And then this will all lead to a full week, a 5-day in-person course, kind of a capstone PIO course in April, the week of April 17th through the 21st. So that is underway and in process. The GIS or JIC interconnectivity planning work also has been complete. So there was a slide early in this presentation that Director Lane took you through, and that's really how does that joint information system connect in with the broader EOC, with IC, and with the mayor's executive MAC team as well. And so that's been really, really crucial because we have systemic interdependencies in order to operate. I always like to say information in can produce information out. If we're not getting the information in a timely way, it's harder to get that information out. And that was a huge learning, obviously, from this after action report, and one that obviously we have all taken seriously and are working together. So that interconnectivity planning work is essentially complete. We do need to exercise that, and that will be a part of the exercises this year and leading up to 2024. The Crisis Communications Operations Structural Response Planning is underway and has been since September of last year when we hired crisis communications consultant Thunheim to come on board and to work with the city. And so in my role as the communications director under the Office of Public Service, I'm working with communication staff from the mayor's office, communication staff from the Office of Community Safety, and communication staff within the Office of Public Service to make sure we are addressing the new executive structure. So when Hillard Hines came forward a year ago, there wasn't an Office of Community Safety. We are structured a little bit differently, so we want to make sure that we have the structure and workflow underway that will kind of root the crisis communications, emergency communications planning. But I can report that the 4 immersion sessions, are complete as of February 22nd, working with Thunheim now to pull together the first draft of recommendations and then a final report and response guide. And so our expectation is that will be complete sometime in this next quarter, in Q2. And hopefully I will be here to report back at our next quarterly update on that. Our second recommendation that I'm reporting on is recommendation 21. The city should routinely review and update a formal written operational emergency communications plan to guide MPD and the city's public information officers, PIOs, as they determine when and what information to share with the public. I do want to say that the city currently has 3 sets of written guiding procedures and protocols related to public information and communications. So the first is the Emergency Operations Plan. We call it Functional Annex D, fancy term. This really guides public information and communications enterprise-wide. It was last updated in the fall of 2016, and so that does need to be updated and aligned with the other 2 items that I will take you through. That will be underscored by the recommendations coming back from Thunheim. So first we want to get that Thunheim recommended plan back, and then we want to do work to update and align these existing procedures and protocols. The second written procedure is the Public Communications Protocol on Critical Incidents. That was updated last February 2022, and that really guides the dissemination of information, public information, in a time of an emergency and specifically a critical incident. And we worked really closely with MPD at the time, and we'll continue to work with the Office of Community Safety. And then the third set of protocols is an interim mayoral policy that guides both the Office of Public Service and the Office of Community Safety PIOs. That was developed and utilized actually during Operation Memphis. So that was January of 2023. And that really allows for a structure for us to work together as OPS and OCS communicators to make sure that we are aligning and working together as we move forward. So we are recognizing the effects over the last year of the new executive structure and making sure that we're taking that new structure into account as we pull together recommendations in Q2. The Office of Public Service Communications, I have taken the lead, working with Tuenheim on developing the crisis communications work, and again, working very closely with the mayor's communications staff, the Office of Community Safety, and embedded public information officers in departments beyond the city's communications department. We do have communications staff, media relations staff in the health department, in regulatory services, in Public Works and in CPED, and so I want to let you know that we are all working very closely together and have weekly meetings to coordinate information, and that will be a piece of the work being brought into that plan in Q2. And we will just continue to provide those updates, but there has been a lot of work to date and more work to come, and then of course it all happens at the exercises because we know we have to be practiced on how we work together, and every crisis and emergency is different, and so we need to be nimble on how we work together. And that concludes my section. I can stand for questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Osman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director. I probably asked you this question many times, but how do you plan to communicate with people that are that speak other than English? You know, what information? How would you communicate through that? How would you communicate through that? I mean, yes, city puts out information and communication through English, but I think we need, as a public, we need to kind of know Spanish speaking, English speaking, or other language speaking, how would they receive that information? Also, how would you respond or tackle or go against misinformation that public's getting for what's happening? What's real, what's not real? What role would the government, City of Minneapolis, and the leaders take? And lastly, we as a council members are the first one that will be the residents of Minneapolis will contact. How would we ourselves receive information from the departments that are leading this communication? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Palmisano, Councilmember Osman. Those are three really critical questions that we are reflecting on from the past, and also making sure that we have the systems and protocols in place and then are exercising according to that. I would say that in terms of all three portions of that question, how are we communicating with non-English speaking residents in the city? How are we making sure that the information is in fact accurate? Because that's really important. We want to dispel misinformation. It is our job to make sure we're getting accurate information, timely accurate information out. I would say that all three pieces are rooted in an effective running of the Joint Information System. And so there are 4 sections in a JIC or a JIS. One of those sections, so there's media relations, there's information gathering, which allows us to figure out what information is coming in, both questions that council members might have that they're getting from residents or businesses in the ward, as well as questions we're seeing on social media, constantly monitoring that. Media relations is obviously working with our media partners to get public information out. And then we have a community relations section of the JIC or the GIS, and Director Moe is here, and the NCR team is really in the lead. And so NCR is also a huge partner with us that I failed to mention earlier, but they are also working with us on that. We do use a variety of city channels. We do work very closely with NCR in translating content. So when we get a piece of information that we have to share out with the public, we work within the community relations section of the JIC or outside of the JIC. We might be working directly with NCR in translating content. So we want to make sure first that the information is accurate. We want to secondly make sure that we have a relevant piece of communication, a message that's written. Sometimes that's visual, sometimes it's a visual diagram, for instance. Sometimes it's just written content. And we'll make sure that that is translated into languages and then pushed out through respective city channels. So there is a lot that does go into that, and that is that was not only a huge learning, but is a guidepost by which we will be operating and are hoping to operate as we move forward daily with work.
I don't know if you answered this question, but as a council members, how would we receive that information? You know, what is there to share? Are we just gonna learn through the public information, or would there be some kind of communication with the city council members?
Sure. Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Osman, thank you for repeating that third question because I did not answer that. Within the slide that shows kind of the interconnectivity of how do all these elements work together, so how does the GIS work with the EOC, with the Mayor's MAC executive policy team, and with IC, I believe at this stage, and Director Lane can correct me, but we do have a system where information will be shared, I believe, with council members through the MAC, through the mayor's policy team that would be getting that information to council members. We, of course, within the GIS, in an emergency, will be working to get partners the information that's verified. And so, for instance, a message that you could then share out with your own constituents, as we are also doing that, and that you could amplify. But I believe that, Director Lane, unless I'm wrong, I believe that does come through the MAC, through the...
Actually, I think Commissioner,
Thank you.
Director Lane and then the Commissioner have a little bit more to share on that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Palmisano and Councilmember Osman, thank you. Thank you for those very insightful questions, too. But in regards to your last question, if you remember when we stood up Operation Memphis back in January, each of you should have been informed as to what was going on at that particular time. Even though that was a very unpredictable event that occurred outside of this community, we took all preparations here locally as the rest of the country was standing by in bated breath, waiting for that video to drop, of course. So going forward, you will continue to see any information that we have in OCS will be given to you all here on the council. It will come directly from Chief of Staff, Jarrett Jeffries. And as information continues to evolve during those types of incidents, we want to keep you in the loop in real time as much as we possibly can. And I think there should have been some demonstration of that here again during Operation Memphis. So I hope that answers your questions for you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Bergstrom, are you through with your presentation? There aren't any other questions in queue.
I am. Thank you.
Great. Next, we have Director Moe. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Palmisano, council members. Thank you for having me. My name is Karen Moe. I'm the Director of Neighborhood and Community Relations. and I will be talking about recommendations 1 and 2. And I apologize, I am going to read from my notes today because I did not get to update the slide, but I do have a number of updates from other departments that we've been working with on this and want to make sure I accurately reflect the work that we've been doing with our partners. The first recommendation states, the City of Minneapolis should host a series of community conversations and facilitate a dialogue to allow residents to discuss how the protests and unrest impacted them and provide their suggestions for improvement. Since NCR was tasked with this recommendation, we've been working internally with our city departments responsible for the day-to-day operations responding to these types of incidences. I'm going to touch base on the work that we've been doing. To start, we've been working with the Minneapolis Police Department to understand their current efforts and coordinate future efforts regarding their ongoing relationships with community members, as well as what they're doing to address this issue in particular. When Chief O'Hara officially joined the city in November, we believed it would be important to work with him to understand the intentions of how he would be approaching this. Specifically, we didn't want to duplicate any efforts. As a new police chief coming in, he spoke very publicly about the work that he had done building relationships with community members, and we wanted to make sure that we coordinated with him. In December, Greta Bergstrom, who I was reporting to at the time, and I met with Chief O'Hara and members of his staff. We briefed the chief on the recommendations to neighborhood and community relations. The chief at that time spoke to the work he had led in Newark, bringing members of the police department together with members of the broader community to jointly understand the historical context of their joint trauma and to develop skills that would facilitate ongoing partnerships between police and community based in trust. Since then, we have continued to work with NPD to collaboratively design various spaces that will allow for NPD to have these ongoing dialogues with various community members moving forward. The intention is to create a transparent, formal space. You heard DC Schoenberger reference kind of informal relationships in community and the interest in formalizing those relationships. The intention is to create a transparent, formal space that provides the opportunity for the police department and members of our communities to be part of an ongoing relationship, to come together and collaboratively examine not just the impact of the shared trauma associated with protests and unrests, but the trauma that led up to the protests and unrest. Both the police department and NCR agree that it is important that the police department lead this effort. No work externally has been done on these as of yet. This work will require ongoing capacity and commitment on behalf of NPD. NCR will continue to support NPD through this effort. As both NPD and NCR are filling our vacancies, please know that we're working quickly, as quickly as possible to build out this recommendation. And once there is more information, we both will be returning to council to provide updates. This effort is not to replace any other efforts driven by the police department, but it's in addition to the other efforts that NPD may be implementing. I want to acknowledge that this approach may take more time than maybe what was anticipated, but it is NCR's opinion that building out these long-term formal relationships actually will have a longer lasting impact than a quick conversation. In addition to working with NPD, we're working with the newly established city auditor requesting a review of existing data already collected. This is a standard practice for our department that before we go out to community to ask for input, that we do an in-house evaluation of what we already know. We also have initiated conversations with the health department on this. Thank you so much, Chief. I am negative, just so everybody knows. I tested today. But we also, as we look at protests and unrest, we also want to expand our understanding of those and think about the potential impacts both on people and our communities as a whole. And so we have engaged the health department. Some of the reasons why we might do this just as examples might be things around thinking about the impetus for a protest might actually be led by environmental disasters. As we look around the country, we see that happening. We also know that there might be unanticipated impacts on our environment. So as we move forward in this conversation, we do believe it's important to have the health department and their expertise involved in some of this. Under the former city coordinator structure, we were working closely with Greta Bergstrom and Heather Johnson. As we are now reporting under the Office of Public Services, we are working to get Fatima Moore, our current director, up to speed, and we'll continue to work closely with Fatima Moore and Heather Johnson on this. I also want to note that we have met with the Race, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging as they were building out multiple strategies, including the racial healing strategy, and understanding that that is not to replace this, but that might be an avenue where information might become available, and wanting to make sure that we were closely coordinating with them. Lastly, we continue to work with the Office of Emergency Management, and I want to say a special thank you to Director Lane as we are getting ourselves up to capacity at Neighborhood and Community Relations. I reached out, and Director Lane kindly offered some assistance with his staff to help just facilitate and coordinate conversations. And so, in a nice colleague-to-colleague offer on this, I wanted to extend that as we move out of today's meeting and prepare for the next quarterly update. We're hoping to have that assistance from OEM as we facilitate some conversations to come back with more information for the second quarter. Regarding the second recommendation, it states the City of Minneapolis should create a forum for business owners so they can discuss how the protests and unrest impacted them and how the city can assist them. Of course, this will be part of the first recommendation in some ways, but I want to acknowledge here that the Community Planning and Economic Development Department, CPED, has done work to understand the economic impact of the dual crisis experienced by businesses starting in March 2020 and the city's responses to recovery. Through this work, CPED continues to support business owners directly and through community-based approaches to understand and remove barriers to stability and growth, both on an ongoing basis and in times of emergency. If you see me checking my notes here, it's because I have been working collaboratively with my partners, and they have been providing me language and updates, and I'm trying to honor their words. Regarding the next steps on the second recommendation, I will work with Director Lane and Director Eric Hansen, who I've been working with up to this point, to officially transfer this assignment over so that you can see it in the next quarterly update that it's officially transferred to a different department for them to come and provide an update potentially. So with that, I will note recommendation 3, we've already heard multiple updates about that one. I will not address that unless you have any questions for me. Otherwise, that's
Director
it.
Moe, we have a couple people in queue for you. First is Councilmember Payne.
My question is broad for the full presentation, not specific to Director Moe. Is that appropriate for me to go into it? Okay. My broad question is, and just for context, we were trained in on the NIMS, National Incident Management System, before even being sworn in. I think we were working off of the 2016 version of our emergency operations plan. We've since gotten an update to that plan that's current as of spring of 22. But my question's about chain of command and unity of command. We have very specific, down to the name details for each of our functional annexes. But those functional annexes are referencing, primary operational responsibility for, police, fire, all of our expected emergency responses. But we now have the new Office of Public Service and the new Office of Community Safety. And I was just curious as to how that chain of command and unity of command exists within this new government structure. And this may even be more of a question for our attorneys than it is for you, Director Lane, but I'm curious about this kind of discrepancy between our charter, which says that our police chief reports directly to the mayor, and our new government structure ordinance that has that more, the chain of command would be the police chief to the commissioner of community safety to the mayor. And I don't know if that discrepancy causes a breakdown in our unity of command when it comes to the hypothetical scenario of, say, people protesting a former president getting arrested.
I think I'll just ask Director Lane for your opinion of how it works functionally. I mean, you also have a legal question here that our attorneys could opine on, but I don't know that we have time for that piece of it right now, but we could take that
I think we should make
offline.
time for that question.
Director Lane.
Madam Chair, Councilmember, So we've immediately, as the chain of, or as the new organizational structure came into place, we had the same question. Are there any practical impacts that can't wait? And our conclusion is no. Right now, we can continue to work with the current system without having any major problems. Now, we're in the process of going through that in detail, and we're going to have to do some level of cleanup to make sure that it aligns. But I think that ultimately, our charter-based, ordinance-based structure is going to trump the emergency operations plan in any event, and I'd certainly defer to legal counsel on that. But I think that both the chain of command, which is, the order and structure of how, people report to each other, and the unity of command, which is one person has one boss, I think that's preserved in the current system, and I don't see any problem in implementing it as an interim basis. Clearly, we're going to have to come in and clean it up, but there's nothing that's in there that we saw that would cause us an immediate problem. If there was, we would have brought that change forward by now.
I would say more specifically, my question is what happens when there's a disagreement on what our operational plan ought to be, and that debate needs to be settled by the person with the highest authority within chain of command, but there's some discrepancy about who that is.
Madam Chair, Council Member, I don't think that there is a discrepancy. I think it's pretty clear who reports to whom. If we look at sort of a hierarchy of what.
I mean, I would agree with that the charter is very clear about the chief of police reports to the mayor exclusively.
This is becoming a legal question, I think, Madam Chair, Council Member.
Mr. Nelson, did you want to opine on this? But I don't want to, this is.
Chair Palmisano, I don't know that I'm tracking the question, but I agree completely with what Barrett Lane said, Emergency Management Director Lane, and I don't believe there is any discrepancy, but I'm happy to discuss.
The charter supersedes the ordinance supersedes the emergency operation plan. The charter clearly states that the chief of police reports solely to the mayor.
And correspondingly, the mayor has the authority to fully delegate as well. So I don't know that there is any discrepancy in practice.
Thank you. We're going to move on. Councilmember Payne, do you have any other questions?
No.
Councilmember Wansley?
Thank you, Council Vice President. I didn't have any questions, but more so comments, and it kind of links to the question that Councilmember Payne raised in terms of, I think the discrepancy that I've witnessed is what is being presented here. Like, thank you, staff, for giving a comprehensive update on how we're making progress on the after action recommendations. That is very clear. What's not clear is what's being reported to the public. Last Thursday, there was a press conference there where there was two things that were kind of concerning. One about actually the NPR article talks about this, where our mayor, Jacob Fry, mentioned, one of the biggest issues were the chain of command in regards to us not following our emergency operations plan. And that government restructure helped to give more executive authority to him to make these decisions. From my understanding, and on page 10, actually, item number 4, in the after action report, it says, in response to the protest, the city of Minneapolis did not use its emergency operations plan effectively to guide its response. More specifically, it says that the Minneapolis emergency operations plan is well-written, comprehensive, and consistent with nationally recognized practices. However, the mayor's office did not ensure the appropriate implementation of the emergency operations plan. So from my understanding, there was never an issue with government restructure in regards to this. The mayor always had power. That chain of command is outlined in our charter. So I think for the public, it's good to clarify those lines because we're saying something very different in our press conference. Another piece that was raised in that press conference, again, of how we're relaying information about this process to the public that was concerning, is around more a lack of the preventative measures, which I know, Dr. Cedric Alexander, you're coming on May 3rd to Public Health and Safety, where I'm really hopeful we get a little bit more in depth of that vision. But I heard a quote directly that, Mayor Fry named, "We vow to be ready, next time this happens," in regards to civil unrest happening as a result of police misconduct. And that was very saddening to hear that we're prepping for civil unrest related to police misconduct rather than doing everything possible to make sure that the public isn't put in a place or a position where they have to utilize civil unrest to either seek justice or to get equitable treatment from all of the city employees here in Minneapolis. So I think, just as much as we're delegating, which we have to, a lot of our time for preparing for emergency responses, be it, natural disasters or other unforeseen emergencies or tragedies, we should absolutely be pairing that with the goal of eliminating police misconduct, police violence in general. So again, our residents aren't have to constantly endure that. The MDHR findings, I think it's important to pair these findings with that, since that's going to be guiding our upcoming consent decree. Those findings show that the murder of George Floyd was completely preventable. We're slightly past the 1-year anniversary of Amir Locke shooting and killing by Minneapolis police, whose death was also preventable. So all those factors taken into account with our new Office of Community Safety, we should be doubling down on a commitment towards preventing police misconduct in the first place and using tools like the police contract, the consent decree, and the mayor's executive authority that is cemented in our charter over the police to make sure that we are doing that very necessary work, that needed work that our residents have been asking us to do for decades. And if we don't do that, if we neglect to use those pieces of authority, then yes, it makes sense we're only ready for civil unrest in order to deal with situations where we're harming our residents. So I'm really hoping that in the next several weeks, with Dr. Alexander coming forward in the next several weeks in May 3rd, that we'll be able to dive deep as a council into that preventative work, because that is, I wouldn't say equally, but more important than being able to be responsive towards civil unrest when there's been a tragedy that has been committed on behalf of our employees that triggers trauma and ongoing trauma from our residents. So I just wanted to name that as we're moving into the 3rd year of George Floyd's murder.
Thank you, Councilmember Wansley. This is a quarterly update of how we're moving forward on the recommendations that came from the After Action report specifically. I think everybody here in this room shares your goal of preventing, bless you, preventing this kind of civil unrest in the future. Are there any last comments from my colleagues relative to the After Action Review report? I will, Council President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank the staff for this update. I mean, I think this process is more than just responding to civil unrest. It's about any kind of emergency that we may experience in our city, and I am thrilled to know that we are really pulling together a process to be able to deal with natural disasters, any other kinds of challenges that cities face each and every day. We should be absolutely prepared, and I'm glad to see that we are moving in that direction. So thank you all.
Thank you for those words. A lot of this report out feels sometimes very technical, but it's really important in these quarterly updates. They do show the progress of of where we're going here and what's foundationally needed. So it maybe sounds a bit boring, I don't know, maybe, but it shows our growing resilience as a city in all of those ways you just mentioned, so thank you. With nothing further on this, we'll ask the clerk to please receive and file this report. Thank you, and all we have left are the reports of standing committees, starting with the Business Inspections Housing and Zoning Committee. We'll have Councilmember Osman read that report.
Thank you, Madam Vice President.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I did mean to turn the floor over to the commissioner for the last word, if you would wish, on the After Action Review topic.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. But let me just say in closing, the the more recent remarks by Councilmember Payne. Let me start with, you bring up a great point that clearly needs to be clarified, and I support you on that, because we want people to have total clarity around who's in command, who's in control without question. And I support us finding an answer to that, and of course getting some legal understanding in regards to it too. But I will assure you, should any type of event, it could be civil unrest, it could be a natural disaster, whatever the case may happen to be, in which we have to go into a state of emergency, I will assure you that we're going to get through that, and we won't be arguing about who's in charge. But the formality, the real clarity that needs to be done, so that question does not have to be asked, we got to work towards correcting that, and I totally support that. In regards to your statements, Councilmember Wansley, I wholly agree with you. I've been in this fight, this argument around how do we get in front of these issues before they occur for a very, very long time. And it is challenging because we always talk about what if something happens and how we're going to respond when something happens. And the fight and the battle that we're still in this community and across this country are the same issues that I raise every day in the Office of Community Safety. Is really trying to build a relationship in this community specific in which people will feel that those types of events, they don't have to take to the streets. But even during the standing up of Operation Memphis, and many of you may not be aware of it, but there were a number of people, community leaders, in which I know and you know have been knowing for years, who did everything that they could with us, because that was an event that didn't happen in this community, outside of this community, but it had national impact. But people who came together in this community, Councilmember Wansley, I was myself even shocked, who wanted to be there, who wanted to be part of getting out in front of anything that occurred. So we got a lot of work to do in that area, and I look forward, I think you and I got a meeting scheduled, or should have a meeting scheduled come up here pretty soon, so we both can dive a little bit more in what we can work on together to make that a reality, and I look forward to that. And that's all I want to share, Madam Chair, so thank you very much, and thank you for the attention that you gave to both OCS and OPS this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Transitioning to committee reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilmember Osmond, yep.
Business and Inspection, Housing and Zoning Committee brings forward 15 items. Item 1, approve an application for Teacup for on-sale liquor with Sunday sales, limited entertainment, subject to final inspection. Item 2, 180 degrees bond issuance for 236 Clifton Avenue. Item 3, Best Academy bond issuance for 1300 Olson Memorial Highway. Item 4, 200 Central Project in Inclusionary Zoning Tax Increment Financing Plan. Item 5, liquor license approval. Item 6 is liquor license renewal. Item 7 is gambling approval. Item 8 is 2023 Building Official Training Grant. Item 9 is Metropolitan Council Livable Community Account Pre-Development Grant Application. Item 10 is a registration of title for city-owned property 1403 14th Avenue North. Item 11 is McPhail Center for Music for 2021-2022 Annual Report. Item 12 is modification of existing commercial property development fund loan to Mayfield Real Estate Holding at 4601 Lindale Avenue North. Item 13 is Home Investment Partnership American Rescue Plan funding allocations. Item 14 is 2023 consolidated action plan budget adjustment. And finally, item 15 is rezoning for Matt Finn on behalf of Simpson Housing at 2730, 2734, 2740 First Avenue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. Next, we have the Policy and Government Oversight Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Policy and Government Oversight Committee is bringing forward 22 items for approval and 1 for deletion. 1 is passage of an ordinance related to appointed positions in the Health Department, Workforce Director of Health. 2 is passage of an ordinance related to 3 appointed positions in the Office of Public Service, Deputy City Operations Officers. I'll be moving to delete this item from the agenda as requested by staff. 3 is authorizing a collective bargaining agreement with IATSE Stage Technicians Unit 2023 through 2025. 4 is a passage of a resolution for gift acceptance for the National Association and County and City Health Officials of Travel and Lodging Expenses. 5 is passage of a resolution gift acceptance from Lyft Bikes and Scooters LLC from the Nice Ride Minnesota for bike and scooter parking equipment. 6 is passage of a resolution, gift acceptance from the Association of Food and Drug Officials for travel and lodging expenses. 7 is passage of a resolution of gift acceptance from the National Association of County and City Health Officials for travel and lodging expenses. 8 is approving the 2023 Local Board of Appeal and Equalization. 9 is authorizing agreement with Acorn Mini Storage 4 LLC for access over the property at 2547 5th Street Northeast. 10 is accepting a bid for pump station 49 added fuel for generators. 11 is accepting bid for 15th Street sanitary sewer rehabilitation. 12 is accepting a bid for Hennepin Avenue at 10th Street parking ramp fan replacement project. 13 is accepting a bid for ramp B chiller replacement. 14 is authorizing a contract with Short Elliott Hendrickson, Inc. for engineering and design services for 37th Avenue Northeast Street reconstruction project. 15 is authorizing a contract amendment with CSC Cybertech Corporation for providing a risk management information and claims processing system. 16 is authorizing a contract amendment with C-Click for providing a resident reporting tool. 17 is authorizing a contract amendment with Northland Business System for dictation software services and devices. 18 is authorizing contract amendments for alley snow plowing services. 19 is approving a legal settlement, Nicholas Hernandez versus the City of Minneapolis et al. 20 is approving a legal settlement, Brooks versus the City of Minneapolis et al. And 20, authorizing contracts with agencies for services under the Group Violence Intervention Strategy, that's 21. 22 is accepting a bid for water main cleaning and lining. And then item number 23 is passage of a resolution for a new contract form for memorandums of agreement for housing and urban development, environmental coordination, and review among state and local parties. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. We'll move on to Public Health and Safety Committee. I understand that report will be given by Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Public Health and Safety Committee is bringing forward 2 items. Item 1 is accepting a grant from Mississippi Watershed Management Organization for erosion and sediment control enforcement. Item 2 is approving appointments to the Arts Commission. And I will stand for any questions on these items.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any. Next, we'll move to Public Works and Infrastructure Committee chaired by, well, that report will be given by Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Public Works and Infrastructure Committee will be bringing forward 8 items for approval. The first is designating the 2023 street lighting replacement project. Number 2 is authorizing a grant agreement with the Metropolitan Council for Municipal Infiltration and Inflow Grant for cured in-place pipe lining and sewer repairs. Number 3 is authorizing lease agreements with Greyhound Lines, Inc. and MnDOT for the relocation of Greyhound Lines from the Hawthorne Transportation Center to Ramp B. Number 4 is authorizing negotiation of easements for the Pillsbury Avenue South Bridge over the Midtown Greenway. Number 5 is authorizing negotiation of easements for the 10th Avenue South Bridge over the Midtown Greenway. Number 6 is approving an appointment to the Metro Blue Line Extension Community Advisory Committee. Number 7 is authorizing an amendment to the lease with MnDOT for storage space in Ramp B. And number 8, authorizing a funding agreement with the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization for the 35W South Modeling and Model Conversion Project. I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you all for hanging in here for this time today. We've concluded all business to come before us. And hearing no objection, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Climate change on a local level. We're committed to incorporating new, effective, and proven approaches.
One emerging approach is to remove carbon from the air using biochar. Biochar is wood heated